Welcome again to F major added second chord. I am again Miles, but for the first time on this show, it is Easter. Happy Easter for those of you who celebrate Easter. I think Passover is still going on. Happy Passover to you Passover celebrating folks. And for the rest of you, something else. I don't know. You know, people always complain that I've heard it complained that Easter is the important holiday in the Christian tradition, but Christmas is the one everyone remembers, the one everyone cares about, because the Santa Claus and the elves and the such. Easter has not been adopted by popular culture in the same way Christmas has. And there's really, what are you going to do? The Easter Bunny just doesn't have the same sway that Santa Claus does. You know, the Easter Bunny, he's great, I assume. But, I never believed in the Easter Bunny. I believed in Santa Claus. I believed in Santa Claus for years. I never believed in the Easter Bunny in the same way. Santa Claus, that's one thing. And you want to believe in Santa Claus. He's powerful. He has elements. He's compelling. For the Tooth Fairy, I believe in the Tooth Fairy too, and but not the Easter Bunny. Easter Bunny was like, I don't know, what else is there? Leprechauns? That's a month before Easter. Like a leprechaun. I didn't believe in leprechauns. I didn't question them. I didn't think about leprechauns. They never occurred to me, except in the specific context of those calendars that you have in your classroom in the third grade that have all the holidays on them. And in March they have the 4-leaf clover and the rainbow and the pot of gold and so on. Unless it's one of those calendars that has rain. Or maybe flowers? No, flowers are April. Flowers are April. Because flowers, like the Easter Bunny, are associated with Easter. Now the Easter Bunny, I don't have an opinion about the Easter Bunny. I don't have much opinions about Easter. Easter never compelled me. The other advantage that other holidays have is they have cuisine, and Easter only has ham. And it took me a long time to appreciate ham on its own terms. Not like turkey. But granted, the only reason I ever liked turkey was because everyone told me it was good, It was the Thanksgiving food, therefore it was good. Easter never held that kind of sway over me. So I was never persuaded. You know what I mean. The point is, I can't really talk about... I'm in a ruminative mood, as usual. I find myself looking back on my childhood because there's not a lot else to look back on because it's all childhood. Childhood and about a year and a half of college. I can't drink, so childhood. And the thing that I find myself remembering instead of Easter is church. And specifically instead of church, the aggregate, Sunday school. Because my parents, we went to church. I was never compelled to believe any of it, but I accepted it uncritically. And we went to church. Yeah, I was immersed in that culture. I was immersed in that tradition. And I went to Sunday school. Because they had a Sunday school in the basement. There was the first half of the service. And then they had these announcements, I think. And then the children would go downstairs to the Sunday school, and then the pastor would read the main sermon to the congregation. Recite, whatever it was the pastor did. I only saw the sermon once. I remember there was one occasion when we did not go downstairs. And I remember being very excited, but I remember nothing else. But we would go downstairs. We would go into Sunday school. I remember several things about Sunday school. We played hangman once. I don't know why that's the first thing I think about. You can make your own jokes about the church people playing hangman, given that that's not the method of execution with which we are most readily associated. But, what are you going to play? Crucifix Man? How do you play Crucifix Man? That's probably disrespectful, to be perfectly honest. I digress. we would go downstairs and they would read us these picture book versions of the Bible with, these Norman Rockwell looking paintings, quote unquote paintings of, Jesus and the disciples, and Old Testament stuff too. It took me a long time, I remember, to connect Adam and Eve and Noah and Samson and David, all that stuff, to Jesus. I didn't realize that was a continuous canon. As continuous as it can be over that period of time, but with that break in the middle, sort of that Jesus to come up and didn't change everything around. The thing I remember most clearly about Sunday school, I remember three things. One of them was the storybooks. I'm specifically thinking of Jesus turning over the moneylender stuff. That was very exciting. Second thing I remember was that every Sunday they would close with a snack, and I would never eat the snack because I was never hungry. It was like Nilla wafers or something. Man, I remember Nilla wafers. It's been a long time since I had Nilla wafers. Maybe it was graham crackers, but I feel like it was Nilla wafers. It makes me feel better to remember them as Nilla wafers. And then I remember singing. I think we sang songs because that's what you do in church, and that's what you do in Sunday school, except in Sunday school, they're children's songs. We sang Father Abraham, who had many sons, and many sons had Father Abraham. For many years, I thought that was about Abraham Lincoln and not Bible Abraham. Partially it was because I hadn't read the Bible yet. I hadn't read Genesis at that point. But mostly because Abraham Lincoln was a pretty cool dude. He saved the Union. He was like the father of our country in the similar way to how George Washington was the father of our country. Except different. This made plenty of sense when I was 6 years old. And I remember, we probably sang other songs, but the song I most clearly remember was this really upbeat, this really cheesy song. It was the sort of thing you would hear on a VHS cassette about Psalmy, the singing songbook or whatever. And I remember very distinctly, there was a line that we were singing, the sword of the Spirit, the shield of the word, or something along those lines. I thought there was an actual physical sword. I imagined an actual physical sword that wasn't like a metaphor for like how something. I thought the sword of the Spirit. That was like the coolest shit imaginable. I had this anime conception of the sword of the Spirit. Like you would reach inside yourself and you would pull out this rich, this glistening, powerful blade. It was orange. I distinctly remember it was orange and it like shot lasers or something, or maybe it shot fire. Maybe it did both. And it was like, whoa, the sword of the Spirit. This church thing isn't half bad. Wow. Or something. I remember Sunday school. That was something else. And then we stopped going to church after a while, and then, we moved, and then it took a long time for my parents to find their own churches. My mother's church didn't have a Sunday school. Just 3 hours of the AME Zion worship machine continuously. And by the time my dad figured out his thing, there was this, the church that he went to had a youth ministry, a student ministry, but they called it a movement, a student movement, as if that meant something. Nothing quite so pure as Sunday school. Nothing quite so pure and all-American as Sunday school was. I mean, I don't look back on it I don't look back on it with nostalgia. There's a distinction between fondness and nostalgia that is central to how I view Sunday school. I remember it, and I guess I'm glad that it happened, but nostalgia, that's something you revisit. I don't want to go back to Sunday school, not least because I still haven't read the Bible. I don't look at the Easter Bunny nostalgically either. Santa Claus, those are good times. But the Easter Bunny, I could do without the Easter Bunny. I'm more than willing to let that one go. In case you were still believing that the Easter Bunny was real, by the way, I apologize for breaking it to you. I'm sorry. I hope you can forgive my carelessness. Bye, y'all.